You can lose weight from your face, your arms can look leaner, your clothes can start fitting better, but then you look at your lower stomach and it feels like absolutely nothing has changed. That's usually the moment that most people panic. They cut their food down even lower. They add in another cardio session. They start doing hundreds of ab exercises, or they decide that their body is different and they just give up altogether. But lower belly fat is not necessarily more resistant to fat loss. You don't need a special exercise, supplement, or diet to fix it. What I've found by now coaching over 1,000 busy men and women to lose fat is that it's simply one of the last places where fat loss becomes visible, which means that the real challenge is not learning how to start losing weight, it's following a plan that you can maintain long enough to see it through. Because most diets are designed to create fast results for a few weeks. They're not built to survive a stressful day at work, a family meal, a busy weekend, or even a holiday, or one of those weeks where everything just seems to go wrong at once. So in this video, I'm going to explain why your lower belly fat can seem unchanged even when you're making progress, why trying harder will actually make it less likely for you to get lean enough to lose it, and the three-part approach that we use to help busy people lose body fat without extreme dieting or spending hours meal prepping. The first thing that you need to understand is what I call the stubborn fat illusion. Most people think that lower belly fat is some magical different type of fat. They think that it needs to be attacked with some specific ab workout or a particular food or some magic supplement. But that is not actually how fat loss works. You can't decide where the body removes fat first. Doing more leg raises might make the muscle underneath more strong, but it does not force your body to take the energy from the fat around your belly. That would be like trying to drain one corner of a swimming pool. You can scoop out water from that corner all day long, but the water level across the pool is going to change together. Fat loss works in a similar way. Your body releases stored energy across the body, but because of your specific body and individual fat distribution, some areas become visibly leaner than others first. For one person, their face changes immediately. For someone else, it might be their arms or their legs. Meanwhile, their waist seems to take way longer. And that's what creates what I call the stubborn fat illusion. Your body is changing, but because you are staring at the one area that you care about the most, you convince yourself that nothing is happening. This happens all the time with our clients. Someone's lost 5 or 6 kilos, their clothes are fitting differently. Other people have noticed and their energy is way better. Their waist measurement might even be dropping, but because they're still carrying some fat around their stomach, they think the process isn't working. They don't compare themselves to where they started. They compare themselves to the final result that they've got in their head. And that is where they make a huge mistake. They abandon a plan because it hasn't finished working yet. This is exactly what happened with one of our clients, Max. He ended up losing 35 kilos and finally took control of his body, his health, and able to be consistent on the weekends. His body didn't transform every single week. There were periods where his face first looked a little bit different. Then his clothes started fitting differently. His general shape would change before he would finally start getting lean enough for the abs to shine through. The important thing was he didn't just change direction. He stayed consistent with the plan, and he was able to do that because it was custom built for him and didn't rely on loads and loads of willpower. So over the next 24 hours, stop just using your lower stomach as the only measurement for your progress. Take your body weight, a waist measurement, take the measurements of your clothes, and make sure you're also taking your transformation photos, front, back, and side, because understanding that your body is still progressing is really important. But it's completely useless if your plan is too aggressive to see it through. And this is where most people unknowingly sabotage themselves. Principle 2 is the sustainable deficit rule. Most people think that if they want faster fat loss, they should just eat as little as possible. It sounds logical, right? A bigger calorie deficit means quicker results. And yes, in the short term, it often does, but the real issue is so much deeper than that. The fastest plan on paper is not always the fastest plan in real life, because the plan only works when you're actually following it. If you massively reduce your calories and cut out all of the foods that you enjoy, you avoid meals with your family, going out to social events, and you train 6 days a week, you add hours of cardio. Yes, you may lose weight quickly for 2 to 3 weeks, but what happens when work becomes stressful? What happens when the weekend arrives? What happens when the kids want a meal together, or when you have a birthday or holiday or some special event? This is why so many people are so disciplined Monday to Thursday, and then they completely fall apart from Friday to Sunday. They think that the weekend is the problem, but usually the weekend is often just exposing how unrealistic the weekday plan actually was. They've spent 4 days completely holding their breath, and the moment life gets a little bit less controlled, they come up for air. The answer is not always becoming stricter. Most of the time, the answer is building a plan that you don't feel that you need to escape from. This is the sustainable deficit rule. Create a smaller calorie deficit that gets great progress, but that you can actually be consistent with. Not the biggest deficit that you can survive temporarily. Your calorie intake should be low enough for fat loss to occur, but high enough that you still have energy to work, to train, and to think clearly and participate in your real life. Because losing your stomach fat will probably require you to be consistent for longer than you think. And if your plan is unbearable from week 1, then you've probably got no chance of actually reaching weeks 14, 15, 16. This was a massive mindset shift for one of our clients, Sherry. She lost over 23 kilos in 6 months. But the most important part is not the weight that she actually lost. She broke that cycle of starting again every single Monday. She could finally eat with her family. She had more energy after work. She built a way of eating that worked inside her life, rather than forcing her life to revolve around a diet. That's why sustainable progress usually beats dramatic progress. Dramatic progress looks good for a few weeks, but sustainable progress changes how you actually live. So what can you actually do right from now? Within the next 24 hours, identify one part of your diet that you know is way too restrictive. Maybe you're removing carbs, but you actually enjoy them. Maybe you're skipping meals and just becoming absolutely starving at night. Or maybe you're eating completely differently from your family. Replace that restriction with one repeatable structure. For example, you can build each main meal around a protein source. You can create 2 or 3 easy breakfasts or lunches that you can easily rotate. Or you can plan your weekend meals before it actually begins. The objective of this isn't to make fat loss easier every single second, it's to make it repeatable. But even with a sustainable plan, your progress is eventually gonna slow down. And this is where people either make the right adjustment or they ruin a plan that only needed a small tweak. And that brings me on to principle 3, which is the strategic adjustment method. Most people only have one response when fat loss slows down: eat less. And if that doesn't work, they eat even less. Then they add more cardio. Then they remove another food. Then they become frustrated because they're doing more work for less results. But reaching a plateau in your fitness journey doesn't mean you need to pull every single lever at the same time. It means you need to identify the most important lever to pull at any given point. And that is the strategic adjustment method. Your fat loss plan has several adjustment areas: your calorie intake, your daily movement, your structured cardio, your strength training, your sleep and recovery, your weekend consistency, and the accuracy with your food. The mistake is making major changes without checking the basics. Someone tells me that their metabolism has just stopped working, but then we actually look at their week. They're eating well from Monday to Thursday, but Friday night turns into takeaways and drinks. Saturday just becomes a full day of grazing, and then Sunday becomes another meal out. Then on Monday morning, they slash their calories again. That is not a broken metabolism. It's an inconsistent weekly structure. Before you reduce your food, check that you're actually following your plan consistently. Before you add in another exhausting workout, check whether your daily steps have dropped. Before blaming your body, check if your portion sizes have slowly crept up. And before reacting to 3 days of your scale weight staying the same, remember that sleep, stress, sodium, and digestion all affect what the scale weight shows temporarily. A plateau is not just one heavy weigh-in. It's usually several weeks without meaningful change, despite having consistency. Think of your plan like adjusting the temperature in a house. If the room is slightly too warm, you don't go around smashing every single window in your house, turning off the electricity and removing the roof. You adjust that thermostat slightly. Then you give the system the time to respond. Fat loss should work in the exact same way. Make that small, useful adjustment. Monitor the outcome. And then you can decide whether a change is necessary. So here's how to apply it. If your progress has genuinely stopped for 2 to 3 weeks, start by reviewing consistency. Were you accurate with your meals? Were your weekends structured? Did your steps fall? Did your training remain consistent? Were you sleeping properly? If those areas are solid, then yeah, make one small adjustment. You could reduce your average calorie intake slightly. You could add a little bit more to your manageable steps target. You could add 1 or 2 short cardio sessions. Do not slash your food or double your cardio and add extra training at the same time. Because if progress starts again, you won't know what change worked, and you will have already used several tools unnecessarily. This is why our client Zai was able to stay consistent for 7 months of his transformation. We didn't pull all of these levers at once. We made the right adjustments at the right time. So fat loss didn't feel unbearable, and he didn't need loads and loads of willpower. He just followed the system week to week, rather than just being reactive to every situation. So just remember that lower belly fat is not removed by punishment. It's removed by staying in a manageable calorie deficit for long enough to see results. Because your goal should not be to lose as much weight as possible within the next 6 weeks. It should be to build a body and a lifestyle that you don't constantly lose control of. And every time you follow through, even with a stressful week, or you return to your structure after a social meal, you're not only losing body fat, you're rebuilding trust with yourself. You're proving that you can keep to the promises that you're making to yourself. And that confidence will affect you far more than just what you see in the mirror. And if you found this video helpful, make sure you watch the one that's popped up on the screen right now, because that's going to teach you how you can stop starting over and over again and really make this into a lifestyle. But that's all from me, guys. I'll see you in the next one.